Hey everyone, me Kevin here. In this video, we are going to break down exactly what Joe Biden just told us regarding stimulus going forward. And these are going to be some of his economic priorities for stimulus and support going forward. This is going to be a full, concise breakdown of what his priorities are. This all came from an over 1 hour long meeting. And don't worry, I had some coffee and I cut it down to the best 6 minutes. So let's go ahead, get started, and listen to what Joe Biden has to tell us about stimulus and his thoughts about the current stimulus proposals that are floating around. Quick reminder though, get your 4 free stocks with Webull. Today is the last day to get those. So if you deposit $100 with Webull, you will get 4 free stocks worth at least $21, which is a 21% return on your money instantly, all the way up to $1,600 in free stocks. All they want you to do is sign up and make an account at Webull and deposit $100, and you could trade some stocks that way. Let's go ahead and listen to Biden now.
What our friends seem to be focusing most on is liability. Guaranteed there's no liability for businesses if, in fact, they open anything happens. I mean, anyway, it's a long story.
Biden talks a lot about our friends. Anytime he says our friends, he's generally talking about our friends across the aisle, which means Republicans. Republicans seem deathly interested in having liability protections above anything else, is what he's saying. Now, we're going to listen to what he says about healthcare, unemployment insurance, rental assistance, home assurances, other economic plans. We're going to hear a lot from him on stimulus and economics.
Here's the deal. One of the things that we think should happen and continue is that no one should be evicted from their apartment or their home for being able to fail to be able to pay their rent and or their mortgage until this crisis is over.
That's a big statement. Until this crisis is over. Realistically, this crisis might not be over until towards the end of next year. It'll slowly fizzle down, hopefully, as we get more vaccinations. But, vaccinations will go up and cases will hopefully, go down, and we'll see that intersection. But the reality is we've got over 12 million households that are behind on rent, which, times an average household size, we could be potentially 30 to 40 million people who could be evicted from their homes because they're not able to pay rent. We're over $23 billion behind in rent in this country. We need support for tenants, but not just for tenants, also for homeowners. So continuing those forbearance programs, very important.
And it should be funded. That should be held up. Now, you can't deny the apartment owner. He or she's not have just pockets that are so deep they can afford to pay everything and not have anything. So it was supposed to be paid for, not a loan, to be paid for.
This is interesting. So he's suggesting basically these debts that are accrued by tenants and owners should be paid for. Now, it's not entirely clear what his plan is for this. Currently, the only thing that we have is we know that tenants aren't getting evicted until at least January 1st, but we expect that to get delayed. Although we haven't seen anything extending that yet. So far, we have seen that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac for conventional style loans will not do any foreclosures until at least January 31st. That was just delayed by 30 days. So there's a little bit of an extra support. But, and then on top of that, you could still get forbearance. If you haven't yet gotten forbearance, you could still get forbearance up to 3 months after the pandemic is actually declared to be over. So there are some options here, but he's almost implying direct payments and direct housing and rental relief to bail people out of these back payments and these back owed monies, so to speak. Because even if you take forbearance, you technically still owe the money back, right?
This is a national crisis. This is a national crisis that we're facing. And it affects the entire economy. So the first thing is rent and just your housing, your basic housing. Are you able to maintain without being worried you're going to be getting notice you're thrown out in the street? Number two, and if you're fortunate enough to own your home, that's a different thing, or own your condominium, that's a different thing. And secondly, to make sure we make it a lot easier to buy into
I just want to clarify. I cut there because he starts talking about something totally unrelated. He doesn't go into clarifying, that homeowners is a different thing yet. Obviously, we've heard him say that he's trying to come up with some kind of solution to aid renters and homeowners directly who are behind.
The Affordable Health Care Act and get more coverage with a lot cheaper, with drug prices coming down substantially, as well as making sure that there's a Medicaid option, a Medicare option, like option in the health care plan.
This, by the way, is very divisive between Republicans and Democrats. Democrats are proponents of a public option within basically Obamacare, which Biden plans to redefine as Biden-care. Republicans are generally opposed to this because there's this belief that they're going to have less choices to choose their own plans. Biden says that's not true. This, any kind of public option would just be in addition to. One thing that's not clear is if any kind of mandate for health insurance would come back. Would Biden institute that you have to have health insurance again? That was something that was part of Obamacare that was struck down.
That's what I ran on. That's what one of the reasons I think I got the nomination. And so that's going to be one of my first efforts as well when I get elected. It's not going to happen between now and then. Third thing that it seems to me is the unemployment with the $600 kick-in is really important. It's the thing that allows people to stay above water.
That's huge. This is a huge statement. He is saying the $600 per week as an unemployment boost is really important and allows people to stay above water. Now, earlier, we heard that Nancy Pelosi is open to conceding and accepting this $908 billion stimulus package, subject to her offering some recommendations for changes. But she's basically, the way she worded her statement, she's basically thrown in the towel. She's willing to do $908 billion. Might she come in and say, hey, look, the boost is $300. Can we get this up to $600? Can we get it to $500, $400? Can we include stimulus checks? Entirely possible. We do not yet have clarity from Nancy Pelosi on exactly what it is that she would counteroffer with. However, we do know that senators right now are talking about getting something negotiated by this weekend. So obviously we'll get more details. But Joe Biden is making it very clear here that he is interested in seeing an extra $600 per week for people on unemployment.
It gives some sense of security. It's not like there's a lot of jobs you're going to go to. Like, oh, you're sitting home being lazy. Well, where the heck are you going to go get a job? Every one of you, if there were another job out there that could pay you something, you'd be out applying for it. But it just makes no sense. But it's some of our very conservative friends think that the same people who think you should have to, if you need what used to be called food stamps, you should have to work to be able to do public. I mean, come on, this is.
All right, so let's clarify this a little bit. Republicans believe that there is a disincentive when people to work if you are paid more money to stay at home than you are to work. This specifically targets people making less than $20 an hour. There, in many, many cases, if you were making less than $20 an hour, the $600 per week boost was potentially more money than you'd be making working 25 hours or part-time per week. Obviously, if you're working full-time, you would exceed that. That'd be about $800. But the point is, research showed that 70% of people receiving the unemployment benefits were actually receiving more money than they were getting paid at work. Now, economists say that wasn't a disincentive. Yeah, people got paid more money, but it helped the economy. It was actually a good thing. It gave people more spending money, and it gave people money to go spend at businesses, and it kept businesses employed who were trying to use PPP money. Republicans say, yeah, well, we talked to businesses, and the $600 per week makes it hard for us to hire people. So we have anecdotal evidence that says, well, businesses are having trouble hiring people because people are enjoying the $600 per week in unemployment. We have economists saying, well, our data says, no, there's no disincentive. We don't see that link. I see both sides here. I get it. I see the optics aren't good. The research is on the side of Democrats on this one, though, that the $600 per week is a net positive for the economy.
We're way beyond that. So we've got to provide for you.
And I just want to clarify that because that was sort of a weird cut the way it ended there. We are way beyond that was a reference to Joe Biden talking about, look, Republicans, some of them still think that you need to be able to have a job to get food stamps. Biden's basically saying that's ridiculous. We need people to be able to have food aid through the SNAP program, whether or not they have a job. Like, there has to be a minimum support for Americans, is the belief that Joe Biden is perpetuating here. Obviously, some people believe, look, you want food, you go work. Other people say society is designed and government is designed to help the people least able to help themselves. It's a debate.
The ability to open and open safely. And there's ways to do that, and it should not be a loan, it should be a guarantee. You should be in a position where you can have all that ventilation changed, all of the dividers put up, all the social distancing that you need, and make sure that your staff is safe as well, both indoors and out. But it costs a lot of money to do that, and you should.
This is a big spot here. He's suggesting that businesses should not be provided with loans. They should be provided with, he said, guarantees. I wonder if he meant grants. But he said not loans, and the opposite of loan would be grant. And he did say guarantee. So you would be provided some kind of guarantee, I'm going to replace this and just say grant, that provides you money for dividers and proper ventilation. A lot of you know that Lauren has a lot of asthma, and oftentimes I'll get allergies even just being in this room if I open the door to the outside or the windows or whatever. And I got myself a big old HEPA filtration unit that has like an EV light in it too, or UV light in it. EV, thinking electric cars too much here. It made my allergies go away. But those systems, these HEPA filters, are also really good at capturing the coronavirus, especially with the UV light. Supposedly the UV lights can make these things like inert or whatever, so they can no longer infect you. But anyway, Biden is basically saying businesses should be provided money to get this kind of equipment so that we can reopen safely and get back to work and keep our economy moving. Which, by the way, if you want to know what kind of air purifier I have, you can go to metkevin.com/air. Or is it metkevin.com/purify? Actually, I think both of those links work. Either way, let's keep going.
Be able to get that money to be able to stay open, because it affects the ability of the economy to continue to grow. What people don't realize is putting this money into the economy generates economic growth. It's not just you have a debt, you do, but it generates so much growth. We've got to make sure businesses like yours, Dan, have the resources they need in addition.
On this debt thing, I want to make this argument too. Debt is something that Republicans are deathly afraid of. Like, no more spending, no more spending, no more spending. We don't want our future generations to have to pay this stuff off, because people want a stimulus check or whatever. Democrats, in this case, follow a much more, I should say, I don't want to say the word conventional, maybe a more democratically popular economic theory that says when the market is down, the government should print a lot of money, take on a lot of debt, and help the economy, help businesses, help people. When the economic cycle is better, then you pay off the debt. This is something that Republicans are not a fan of. They see debt and they say bad. In fact, you could go on Twitter and you see a lot of Republicans every single day. They just retweet the debt clock. They're like, oh, this is where we are again. It's fundamental differences, right? It's not saying one is right or wrong.
The guidance and health and safety standards to open safely, So I've been urging our congressional Republicans to work on a bipartisan emergency package now. But any package passed in this so-called lame duck session be now on January 21st. At best, is only going to be a down payment on what's going to happen early next year.
That's a big statement. A down payment on what's going to happen next year. Folks, that's actually a huge statement if he meant it the way he said it, because think about it. A down payment is usually 20%, 30%, 10% of what you're actually going to pay for the entire package. You don't usually think of a down payment being like, that's it, we've done 90% of the work, we're done. Biden's saying this, what we're about to do now, is a drop in the bucket compared to what's coming in terms of stimulus and economic aid.
My transition team is already working on what I will put forward in the next Congress to address the multiple crises we're facing, especially the economic crisis and COVID. Come January, the Vice President-elect and I are going to fight every day for your families. That's my commitment. And one of the things we don't talk about is there is a profound increase, as you all know, in depression, a profound increase, quite frankly, in suicide rates, a profound increase in increased drug abuse use, a profound increase in quite frankly, abuse against women and children in households. And, you know, I don't want to scare anybody here, but understand the facts. We're likely to lose another 250,000 people dead between now and January.
Wow.
You hear me? Because people aren't paying attention. We could provide all the aid in the world, and your restaurants aren't going to be good and open unless people decide they're all going to show up anyway and get COVID if they're in close proximity to one another. And the states are not going to be able to fund the school crossing guards, which are essential workers, and the teachers and the first responders, the cops, the firefighters, the EMTs, et cetera, because they have to balance their budgets. The cities have to balance their budgets. And the good, smart thing about our founders, although it was over 200 years ago, that's why they allowed the federal government to deficit spend.
This is similar to what we were talking about earlier, borrowing and then being able to spend when the money is needed. So that's the end of the interview, but Joe Biden gave us a lot of things to think about. Number one, unemployment. $600 per week is something that Joe Biden is a fan of. We know Nancy Pelosi is a fan of retroactive unemployment. We know that Democrats are looking for stimulus checks and many Republicans are looking for stimulus checks as well. We've even heard the White House directly talk about stimulus checks twice in the last week, once from Peter Navarro and once from Larry Kudlow, suggesting we want another round of direct payments to individuals. Steve Mnuchin says that is a good, fast way to get stimulus into the hands of people. So why not get that done right before the holidays as well? We'll see if Nancy Pelosi ends up negotiating this. But again, the fact that Biden says this is just a down payment is a big tell of what's to come. Business funding, business grants, business support, larger unemployment support, money for people who are behind on rent, money for people who are behind in their real estate mortgage payments. We just got a lot of information here from Biden. We can reconcile this all together. It'll be interesting to actually see some real detailed plans, which I'm sure we'll see as we get closer to January and, you know, the election settles down a little bit and the results actually solidify of whatever is going to happen. But in the meantime, let's get this down payment stimulus package done, and let's see what gets negotiated over the next few days. Get your 4 free stocks in the links down below, and folks, we'll see you next time.